Hello, today's video is looking at the differences between the MLA citation style and the APA citation style. My name is Dr. Mary Wint. Here we go. So the first issue to look at is how the actual pages are formatted. For the most part, they're very similar. So both, as you can see here, both have 1-inch margins. So all the way around, top, bottom, and both sides, you should have 1 inch. I'm sorry. The next thing to look at is the header. In MLA, you'll have a header with just a page number at the top right. In APA, you'll have what's called a running header. So this will also mean an abbreviated version of the title of your paper in the upper left and the page number on the upper right. The abbreviated title goes in all caps, so you would have it in all caps, and it should be abbreviated. It should be a little shortened version. The next thing to look at is the information about yourself. So in MLA, there's no title page. You put your name, your course, and the date in the top left corner. In APA, you will have a title page. Your name, course, and date go in the center of the title page, in the center, 4 inches down. Both of them, this is our parallel here, have the first line of each paragraph should be indented 5 spaces. Both of them will require what is considered to be the equivalent of a Times New Roman 12-point font. So it doesn't have to be Times New Roman, but it should have the same similar size or be equivalent to that. Both of them require that all pages are double spaced. That means that also there is no extra spaces between paragraphs. Many of your word processors default to an extra space between paragraphs. You have to go in and get rid of that. You can do that through the paragraph tab at the top. And both of them will have a page of citations. In MLA, it's called the Works Cited page, and in APA, it's a references page, but both of them will be on a separate page. So those are the main differences between the formatting of MLA and APA. The next thing to look at is the page of sources. So each citation style will have a page of your sources. In MLA, it's called a Works Cited page. So you would type Works Cited at the top. It's centered. In APA, it's called References. So same thing, centered at the top. Both MLA and APA have the entire Works Cited page or References page will be double spaced. So double space between entries and amongst entries. In both of them, all entries are left aligned with a hanging indent. Both of them, all entries are alphabetical and should start with the first letter of each entry in alphabetical order till the end. If something starts with a number, that actually goes before A. So let's look at the basic entries here and how they look. These are really basic, by the way. There are many, many variations on this theme depending on the type of source that you have. So think of this as a very basic look at the differences between the two, not all the information that's included. So in MLA, you'll have the author's last name and first name formatted like this. So you'll have the author's last name, comma, first name, period. Here you have the author's last name and then followed by initials. So that's the difference here. Here you have the author's last name and first name. Here you have the author's last name and the author's initials. The next thing in MLA is the title. In APA, it is the date, usually the year, in parentheses. After that, after the date, here, no date, is the title of the article. Notice two things. In MLA, you use quotation marks around your title. In APA, you do not. Also notice that in MLA, the title of the article capitalizes all major words. In APA, it does not. You only capitalize the first word of the title or the first word after a semicolon if it has a subtitle. So that's the difference between these two as far as the titles of the articles go. Following that in MLA is the container. This will be a website or perhaps a book if you've got an article out of a book, or maybe a journal if you have an article out of a journal. So whatever that container is, that goes in italics. Notice the italics there after the article. Here, they just call it a source, so whatever source it's from, whether it's from a book, a magazine, a journal, a website, you just put the name of the source there in italics. In MLA, that is followed by the publisher, and that is not there in APA. So here you would need the publisher. Usually it's at the bottom of a web page. It'll tell you who the publisher is, usually followed by this little copyright symbol. And here is where the date goes in MLA. The formatting for that would be the day, the month in 3 letters, and the year. Okay? That's this date. Both of them end with a URL. Okay? So let's actually look at this in a sample so that it's a little easier to pay attention to. So this is kind of small, but I wanted you to see the difference between what these look like when you are looking at the actual same source. So it's the exact same source, but one is formatted in APA and one is formatted in MLA. So notice here the initial, right? We have that. Notice here we have a year. No year here. Notice the capitalization of all these letters. And notice here they're not capitalized. Okay. Notice here the container is in italics followed by the publisher. Notice here we just have the publisher and then the URL. Okay. Another thing. Here's an entry here with 2 authors. So this is the last name and first name. The word and first and last. Notice here we have last first initial, an ampersand, and last first initial. So this is how to format when you have more than one author. You use an ampersand and you continue to use last first initial, period. Okay, so that's the difference between these two. Also notice this one is a journal article. So here we have volume 15, number 6, and here we have 15.6. So it's formatted a little differently, even though that's the same information. And then here in MLA, we have the page numbers, and here at APA, we also have page numbers. So that doesn't change. Okay, that's going to be the same. And then this next one is an article from the New York Times without an author. So notice this one starts with the article and it has the quotation marks. This one does not have the quotation marks and it does not have these words capitalized. Okay, followed by the date, New York Times, and the URL. Okay, so that's a different, a look at the differences between the two of the same sources and how different they look when the entries are there. Okay, so the next issue is quoting and in-text citations. So for MLA and APA, they have some similarities. One is that both of them require a signal phrase. So you'll need something like Smith, I lost my writing. Smith says, okay, that's a signal phrase before your quote, and then a comma and your quote. In APA, you're going to need the same kind of thing, but instead of present tense, you will use past tense. Smith said, and then your quote. So that's the difference between those signal phrases. Anytime you refer to any of your sources in MLA, you refer to that source in present tense. In APA, it's in past tense. Now here, this gets a little tricky because if you talk about a source, the title of that source, just like it is on the Works Cited page in MLA, is in quotation marks, okay? That does not change, and it is capitalized, just like it is on the works cited page. However, in APA, in the text of the paper itself, the title has to go in quotation marks, and it has to be capitalized. So what it looks like on your references page in APA is not what the title looks like in the paper itself in APA. The reasoning behind this, I'm fairly certain, although I wasn't there when decisions were made, but the reason behind this is that if you want to make sure that your readers understand that you are referencing a title and you don't put it in quotation marks and capitalize it, then it looks just like part of your text. And it's very confusing to have words that are a title and not have them in quotation marks and capitalized in your text. So even though it is not that way on the references page, it is that way in the text of the paper itself. And that is really important, okay? You don't want to miss that. The next thing to think about when you're quoting or referring to one of your sources is that in MLA, you'll refer to the author by the last name. In APA, you will always refer to the author by the last name and year. So you will always say Smith 2021. Whenever you refer to Smith, you always give the year. Apparently in APA, the year of publication is incredibly important, so they always want it right up front. Okay, so let's look at a sample in-text citation, and like I was saying with the entries on the works cited and references page, this is a very basic sample. There are varieties to this, but this should get you through the basics, okay? So for MLA, you always just use the first word, and I can't emphasize this enough. The first word, not the URL, not the website, not the publisher, not the title, the first word from the works cited page and a page number, if there is one. If there's no page number, then you just put the first word from the works cited page. So in this case, our article would be by Smith, and it's on page 23. That same source in APA is the same because you have the first word from your references page. It's always that first word. And the year, if it's not in the signal phrase, Smith 2011, and the page number. Notice the commas. We have a comma here, we have a comma here, and we have a P period for page. So Smith 23, no commas, no P. APA, Smith, comma, 2011, comma, P period 23. So this is how different these two in-text citations look in MLA versus APA. Now I want to look at a works cited page so I can show you how this works. We're back to our same works cited page. The key to this here is this first word. And I want you to think about this simply and logically. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Don't let yourself get confused. Both the works cited page and the references page is a list of sources in alphabetical order. And how do you find anything when it's listed in alphabetical order? By the first word. That it's just that simple. And the purpose of that in-text citation is to help the reader find the source on the citations page. So in this case, it would be BAI. In this case, wow, that is really tiny, but I think it says banker. So it would just be banker. And in this case, notice we do not have an author. Okay, so the citation for this one is going to be BAI. And it would be the same here. BAI 2020. Okay, over here it's going to be banker. And this one, notice, has page numbers. So we'll have banker, we'll say it's on page 137. 1037. This one, it's going to be banker 2020, page 1037. Okay, so that's the differences between these. This one, your in-text citation, is going to be in quotation marks, coronavirus. That's a word we haven't heard much these days. That's it. There are no page numbers, so you can't put a page number. But notice, because it's a title, you still include these quotation marks for MLA. But notice there are no quotation marks here. So the citation for this is going to be coronavirus. Oops, not that parenthesis. 2021. Okay? Because you need that year. So that is how you would use the in-text citations. These are what the in-text citations would be for the same source. This is how you would cite the by source in MLA, and this is how you would cite the same source in APA. This is how you would cite the banker source in MLA. This is how you would cite that same banker source in APA. And this is how you would cite the coronavirus source in MLA. And this is how you would cite the coronavirus source in APA. Okay, one more thing. The last thing to look at is block quoting. So in MLA, if a quote is 4 lines or more long, then those 4 lines automatically go into what is called a block quote. In APA, it's 40 words. Oh, I have a typo in there. 40 words or more long. So they both look the same. You have your signal phrase. This is your signal phrase. Smith, in her riveting article, says, colon, notice the colon, Smith, 2021, in her riveting article, said, notice past tense, and then you go to the next line, and this whole chunk of text is indented 5 spaces. Same thing here. Okay, I recommend typing the whole quote, then highlighting it, and just moving the whole thing in 5 spaces. It's the easiest way to do it. Notice the citation here. We already have Smith, so we just have the page number. But here we have, that should just be a P, page 20. Then the rest of your explanation in that paragraph goes back down to the far left margin. Okay? Both same here. So the formatting is the same. The only difference between the two is that in MLA, if you're typing along and your quote hits line 4, it automatically goes into a block quote format. In APA, you have to count the words, and you have to do this when there are 40 words or more. Okay, so those are the main differences. Those are just the biggies. There are others, but these are the main differences between MLA and APA when it comes to formatting, list of sources, and in-text citations, and how to handle those, and how to know the difference. So hopefully this helps you. If you're familiar with one, it helps you convert to the other, should you ever need to do that, or to make sure that you're just following one. I see a lot of students that have a sort of mixture between the two, but you need to make sure you're following the same citation style. Whatever one you choose, you got to stick to one. That's all I have for today.